can't call. Be in trouble again. We'll say it.
Okay, the problem was that screen was blocking the stuff at the bottom of the screen and I couldn't see. I don't know which one it's going out on now. If it's the one I said or something else. Okay, this. I don't know where the president is.
They're still trying to figure out tech back there. I don't know who the president is, but
Diabetes.
oh, he's not here.
No, he's not here.
Well, you've got action on his mind.
Well, I try to get 7 or 8 hours, but I usually got 4 hours.
Bring my other monitor with us.
I haven't had my car.
One of the special ones?
You on it?
Not now. Why? Empty the box, did you? Open the box?
I opened the box, yeah. It's in my case. Made sure it worked. Put it on your computer.
I always thought it was selected.
Trash can back there somewhere? Is there a trash can back there somewhere? Oh, it's in the basement.
I would choose JV sauce.
There's a lot more.
It's the anchor.
Hello, Mr. Peterman.
And then I'm in trouble connecting it to the projector.
They had stuff going on earlier.
Better? How are you?
Figured out how to get Wi-Fi yet? Figured out how to
Well,
get
yeah.
Wi-Fi? It's our speaker. Our speaker needs Wi-Fi to be able to do his program.
I want to introduce to you our guest speaker, Mr. Chris Crowley. He has this call sign with Dustoff, and he did the Dustoff missions in Vietnam unarmed. And he'll talk to you about how many people have been missions, how many recovered, that sort of thing. So, just cue me when you want the videos.
Any Marines here? Any Marines here?
Short one.
Listen up.
Yeah, we usually have two, but he heard you were going to be here.
Hi, thank you for having me here. My name is Chris Crowley, and Walsh Slay, among others, asked me to come here to speak. Poor Walsh has had to suffer through several of these. I think they've solved the glitches, so I'm going to start with this 12-minute video, and I'll be interrupting it at certain moments to make comments, and then after that I'll be doing shots of my things like my father's service in World War II.
It's going to be a wet race, Daddy. It's going to be tough to land. Here's real fine. He'll be just a tad, no lights in, real fine. Hey, something just hit us in the tail.
It was the best year of my life.
Okay, slow it down, slow it down. Down up. Okay, nice down.
And it changed all of us, everyone from Dustoff that I know of. It was the defining moment of their lives.
Okay, don't worry, just pull it off the little one and bring it up.
I was born in 1946 in Southern Pines, North Carolina. My father was a career officer, and as a result, we moved around a great deal. My father graduated in 1942, went to England to train for the invasion of France. He was in the 18th Airborne Corps, also in gliders. He jumped in at Nijmegen in Holland and had a distinguished career. I have a photo of my father, D-Day -1, going into Holland, where he is just coming out of an intelligence briefing. He was the intelligence officer. And then another photo. Can you go back, please?
That's
Can you go back one?
Torque about 2 pounds. Going up to 80 knots. Then it's going to be a wet race, Daddy. It's going to be tough to land. Okay, open now. Slide to that. Here's real fun. Build it.
Mark, I'm going to go,
Just a tad,
makes it
no lights
easier
in,
for you.
real fine.
Raise your arm like that. When I go like that, you need to immediately stop it. So, thank you.
Hey, something just hit us in the tail.
It was the best year of my life.
Okay, slow it down, slow it down. Down up. Okay, nice down. Right up.
And it changed all of us, everyone from Dustoff that I know of, was the defining moment of their lives.
Okay, don't worry, just pull it off the little one and bring it up.
I was born in 1946 in Southern Pines, North Carolina. My father was a career officer, and as a result, we moved around a great deal. My father graduated in 1942, went to England to train for the invasion of France. He was in the 18th Airborne Corps, also in gliders. He jumped in at Nijmegen in Holland and had a distinguished career. I have a photo of my father, D-Day -1 going into Holland. This is my father. I need to tell you a little background. My father was born to, can you hear this well?
Yes.
Was born to a devout Irish Catholic family in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He was the oldest son, and they decided that he should become a priest. So they sent him off to Boston College, which is a Jesuit school. And somewhere during his term, he gets kicked out of Boston College for impersonating a priest as a practical joke. He couldn't tell him what happened, so he tells him, I'm going to enlist in the Army as a private. I believe there's a war coming. I want to do my duty for the country. This is in the 1930s. My father also happens to be an outstanding athlete, both as a quarterback in football and as a hockey player. He plays in the local post team, and two West Point scouts happen to see him and say, we can use this guy. So they finagle away from my father to get into West Point. He enters the oldest person in his class. He gets injured in his first game against Rutgers. West Point is now stuck with my father for 4 years. My father doesn't graduate about half of his class, about a quarter. My father graduates, just get your name, guys, to go to his class dead last academically. So, it makes sense that the Army would have made him because of that. He's the intelligence officer for the 82nd Airborne. Back one clear photo. Can you slide it? Boarding C-47.
You can't slide it back.
We moved. Anyway, that's a briefing. He's coming out of D-Day +1 for the invasion of Holland. And it's the final briefing for the 82nd and 101st France.
I got this light turned up too low.
101st, Cleves, French. After that, we came back to West Point, lived for 3 years. Let's just play it and tell me how you want me to signal you to stop. And I went to Duke University.
It's not going to be immediate.
Mark, just play it, please. Thank you. I was there for 2.5 years. During that period, I went in the Merchant Marines in 1965. My father was stationed there in Vietnam in 1965 and 66. He was the head of logistics. Stop. Anyway, that was a picture of myself and my father in 1965 in Tonsinut at the Bob Hope Show. I was during the period I was in the Merchant Marine. My father was head of logistics, J4 on the Westmoreland. I was born in 1946, Southern Pines, North Carolina. My father was a career officer.
They put all these into a
My father graduated in 1942. Went
This
to England
no,
to
but video, they put the video, make this video
was in
into.
the 18th Airborne Corps, also gliders. He jumped in at Nijmegen in Holland and had a distinguished career. I have a photo of my father, G-Day -1, going into Holland, where he was just coming out of an intelligence briefing. He was the intelligence officer. And then another photo showing them boarding C-47s ready to jump into Holland. We moved to France. My father would be able to teach plebes French. And after that, we came back to West Point and lived for 3 years, which is a great place to grow up as a child. Then I went to Duke University. I was there for 2.5 years. And during that period, I went into the Merchant Marines in 1965. My father was stationed there in Vietnam in 1965 and 66. He was J4 head of logistics in West Point. So I had a familiarity of what was involved in Vietnam, and I knew it wasn't going to be a happy conclusion. That's why I enlisted to become a Dustoff pilot. I knew that they were volunteers to fly unarmed helicopters in Vietnam. I had to go to basic first. That was in September of 1967. I went through basic at Fort Polk, Louisiana. And from Fort Polk, went to Mineral Wells, Texas, which is the primary flight school, Fort Walters.
Today, most of the Army's chopper pilots begin their training here at Fort Walters, Texas.
And from there, I went to Savannah, Georgia, Hunter Army Airfield for advanced flight school. And this was in 1968. And then went to a 6-week traumatic injury training course at Fort Sam Houston, designed just for Dustoff pilots. Graduated in November from the medical training at Fort Sam Houston, and off to Vietnam, arrived in Vietnam the 3rd of January, 1969. And we landed at a place called Tan Son Nhut, and there's a practicing center for Dustoff pilots. Decide which unit you're going to be assigned to, who needs somebody. So I ended up going to an area called Northwest 3 Corps, up by the Cambodian border, in a town called Cu Chi, which is pretty well known, and another place called Tay Ninh, Rocket City. The 12th evac at Cu Chi had the highest number of casualties admitted to it in the year 1969. We were busy. We were busy all the time. That's what I'd like to be. That would be the primary place we would fly out of, and we would have 3-day standbys at Tay Ninh. That was our area. It was 2,100 square miles northwest 3 Corps. Tay Ninh was known as Rocket City. In fact, I have a photo here of the hooch we were in, where the 122 millimeter rocket went off 5 feet from me on the other side of the sandbags, blew me out of the bed and tore off the roof of the hooch. And I like to fly first up. First up means that whatever's coming in urgent missions, that's what you would respond to. The most dangerous mission in Vietnam, regardless of service or whatever the job was flying a hot hoist mission. A hot hoist mission means you're above the jungle, usually 150, 200 feet. You're in a stationary position, and you're taking wounded out one at a time. One mission I had to take 6 out, so I was over there for a prolonged period of time. And we would get down, literally cutting off the tops of the trees as low as we could. Dustoff, because we didn't have door gunners, lost 3.3 times as many aircraft or lost men killed as other helicopter missions. 12 pilots assigned to our unit, 159th. I flew with 12 who were wounded or killed. Now, how does that work? That means we had replacements. Most of my flying was done with a medic called Randy Milliken and the crew chief, Mark McKenna. They were with me my last 6 months in Vietnam. Randy wrote a book called My Year in the Company of Heroes. And in my chapter, I picked the mission. It's getting dusk, we're flying out of Tay Ninh, and it's alert team. Alert team is a long-range reconnaissance patrol. 3 of them are wounded. We're flying out, they're saying the area is not secure, and we're going in, and then the ground says, we have 2 Cobras coming 5 minutes out. When you're surrounded on 3 sides at 50 yards, everything can go to hell. So we go in, we land. Well, in this case, the wounded are about 50 yards from where we could land. So both Randy and Mark have to run to start getting the wounded on litters. The keys to staying alive flying Dustoff was get on the ground, load instantly, and get airborne. When I'm sitting on the ground now for like five minutes, I was afraid. I figured this is the condition I die on. I really felt that. It's the first time I ever had that much time to think. And get the guys on board. Tom Cahill pounds on the bubble of the aircraft to get out.
Roll in that little creek there. We're taking fire.
RPGs come in just as we're taking off. But it was miraculous that we didn't take fire while we were on the ground.
Okay, I think you got it. Well, that was quick.
We made every effort to make sure that whether the person was an enemy, a Viet Cong, a North Vietnamese, a Vietnamese soldier, civilians, we picked up a lot of civilians that were treated with dignity and respect, and respected the sanctity of life. We would not tolerate any abuse. And my best example of how we treated everyone was a night mission to pick up a dying young woman who's pregnant. She's hemorrhaging, she's bleeding to death in weather at night. And we start approaching and we start taking fire. Get her out and get her to the 12th back. 30 minutes later, there's a brand new baby born and the mother lived. That's why we did what we did. I will say, and I will always say, the most important people on our aircraft were the crew chiefs and the medics. They were the ones who were facing having to hold a soldier's hand who's asking, am I going to die or can you save me? Or having their hands in the middle of their entrails while you're trying to get to the hospital, or putting in multiple IVs and people crying for their mothers and screaming. They're the ones who really face the war at its worst. Arrived in Vietnam the 3rd of January, spent an entire year there, 1969. Spent all 69 there and returned the 3rd of January 1970. I flew over 1,000 missions and rescued over 3,000 wounded. I am not the exception. Anyone who completed their tour in our unit would have done the same thing. We all did the same thing. When I came back from Vietnam, I was, again, the general's son. I was assigned to Chrissy Army Airfield, which is the small little World War I airfield right next to the Golden Gate Bridge at Letterman General Hospital with lots of nurses. So I spent a year there just shuttling patients up to Sacramento. And then I got out and went GI Bell, entered school in 1971 in January, and went to USF, got my degree from there. We have a wonderful relationship. She's a wonderful, wonderful wife. And Donna and I have been married for 23 years. And she's a woman of immense patience. And I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for her strength, keeping me on the straight and narrow. And we have a daughter named Tara and 2 granddaughters named Alice and Kai. Jim Dixon was a warrant officer co-pilot. He came about 6 months after I'd been there, and Jim moved in with me. And Jim started suffering from the ravages of the war about 10 years ago. 2005, at 8 o'clock in the evening, his wife Sue gives me a call and says, Jim would like to say goodbye. And so Jim and I say our last words. I'm stunned. And the next morning, Sue calls and says Jim passed away and was surrounded by his family. But during the last 15 or 30 minutes, he was talking about a mission that he was flying. He was flying with Crow. That's my nickname, is Crow. He passed away believing that he was trying to save people's lives. 25 years later, his daughter found a letter that Jim had written in 1996, 27 years after Vietnam. This was written in Memorial Day. And I think about my friends and experiences, how vivid my memories are of Vietnam. And one of my first icons and heroes was Chris Crowley. And the best damn Dustoff pilot in Vietnam, and I want to grow up and be just like him. It's my proudest document. And I know it sounds like I'm gloating or whatever, but there's so many of us who could have the same things written about them. For 6 years, there's been a bill in front of Congress, and the Congressional Gold Medal is the nation's oldest, highest, and rarest award for service that our nation can bestow. There have only been 187 Congressional Gold Medals ever awarded in this country. We are the first military unit to have been put up for the Vietnam War. And it's for all Dustoff crews, anyone who flew Dustoff. And the medal was designed by Randy Milliken. And the people who got this Congressional Gold Medal are the medics and crew chiefs, many of whom were never, ever decorated. And they did as much or more than some of these highly visible and more decorated people. So men like Randy Milliken, Jim Dixon, who all flew over 1,000 missions, were never recognized. And they didn't ask to be. The reward was in itself. It's a true brotherhood. It's hard to explain to other people, but it's a bond. We're very proud of what we did. We're glad what we did. We're one of the lucky ones who were able to choose what we wanted to do, and it was rewarding.
Going to go to the slides? Yes, please. Usually I make a lot of comments during the documentary, but I'll keep it somewhat brief. We spoke about the unarmed mission. And the reason I picked that particular mission out is because I felt afraid of that mission. And the reason for that is LERPs, as you know, are elite rangers. When there are 6 of them, they're inserted heavily armed. Their main purpose is to find trails and or enemy activity. If they make contact, that's rarely a good situation. When we first are flying out, I'm speaking to the LERP team, and they're telling me they have 3 of the 6 are wounded, that they are surrounded on 3 different sides at 50 yards, and he's going to signal me in. His name was Tom Cahill. He tells me that there are 2 Cobras 5 minutes out. The way I flew is I didn't want to reconnoiter, ask questions, ask for additional support. I always just wanted to go in and get out. So we go in and we're on the ground, and the wounded are 50 yards from us. So Randy Milliken and Mark McKenna, our 2 primary crew members, rush to the wounded, put them on litters, and get them to the aircraft. About that time, the Cobras arrive on station. The Cobras are laying down intense minigun fire and rocket fire around our tight perimeter. There are ricochets going everywhere, there are frags flying around. But we get out without sustaining virtually any damage. When I contacted Tom Cahill, who was a ranger, only 5-6 years ago, I found his name through the 75th Rangers. That's a Story Ranger group. And he told me that he had relived that mission, and he had done a lot of missions. He had relived that mission every day for the past life. Every single day of his life, he's relived that mission. We stopped on a helicopter with 3 men standing next to the helicopter. One is my medic, Randy Milliken. The person in the middle is Jim Dixon. And the person on the right is the crew chief, Mark McKenna. I'm going to use Randy as an example of the commitment of people who volunteered to fly Dustoff. Randy, when he returned to Texas, became an EMT, a paramedic, a firefighter, a policeman, a detective, also a deputy sheriff. He was the liaison for the Secret Service with George Bush from Texas. And you guys are like this. In 1996, he was awarded by the Sons of the American Revolution Law Enforcement Officer of the Year for Texas. He continues at 78 to be head of emergency services in his county, Kimball County. Kimball County happens to be just above where the terrible flooding took place at the girls' camp last year. The first day, he was in the water with his team, and they pulled out 16 people. The co-director of the emergency management team is his wife, Kelly. Kelly was in the command post and ordered 187 hoists that day. They continued to do this day after day until they went into the terrible recovery period. Randy is my best friend. The next person in the middle, his name is Jim Dixon, and we'll see more about him in a bit. But Jim Dixon, who was my roommate, after he got out of the service, became the first employee of Cellular One, the first president of Cellular One, the CEO and president of Nextel, which was what he sold out to Sprint, was on the board of directors of numerous corporations, and was a consultant to Colin Powell. I bring this up because you'll see at the end, or we've already seen, what was the most important thing that he ever did. Of all the thoughts he could be conscious of talking about his last words. The third person standing next to him was Mark McKenna. Mark McKenna was on the mission. The pilot, Doug McNeil, got shot through the chest with a .51 caliber, was killed instantly. The aircraft flopped on his side. The co-pilot, Ted, is wounded in both legs. Mark has his femur smashed by AK-47. The aircraft is starting to catch on fire, but he managed to lift dead weight forward to the bottom of the aircraft along with the crew chief to get him out, but they got Ted out. If I come across any other, I don't tell many war stories, but I think it's important sometimes to know what certain individuals did. Go on, thank you. Oh, go back one. This is a picture from the Nijmegen Museum. Nijmegen is the major bridge from Holland going over to the German side. The 82nd Division on the west side of the Rhine. Here, as you can see, it's low, sandy area, not bushes, no cover. The 82nd Airborne receives 26 canvas, collapsible, flimsy boats. If you could imagine an army cot, that's the kind of construction they were. They assemble the boats, and 520 paratroopers, 20 persons to a boat, engaged to cross the 1,200 feet of the Rhine. This is in the museum at Nijmegen, dedicated to the 82nd and the 101st, and they still honor them every year. There's one thing that was forgotten. They didn't deliver paddles with the boat, damn Navy. So they're using their M1 rifle butts to paddle across. And this is not an extreme embellished photo. There's a famous movie that was done 50 years ago with a number of major actors in it, including Anthony Hopkins, written, directed by Richard Attenborough, Michael Caine, Sean Connery, Suncask killed.
Redford.
And Robert Redford. It's an amazingly accurate portrayal of what happened at the bridge too far. This is part of a project called Operation Nightwing. So, they suffered 48 killed, 80% casualties, but the remaining 100 who got to the west bank, east bank, make it up to the bridgehead, which is heavily defended. The Germans had already wired the bridge with high explosives. As they were making rapid progress to get to the German positions at the bridgehead, the Germans hit the plunger to explode the bridge. The plunger doesn't work. They're trying to fix it with moments, the airborne overtook their positions and the bridge was secured. The importance of the Nijmegen Bridge can't be overstated. It was the major route for tanks and artillery, trucks and supplies going into Germany. This is September 18th, 1944. They tried to make it up to Arnhem, that's the bridge too far, which was only 12 miles away. But the British had already been surrounded by Field Marshal Walter Morrow, you'll hear his name again, and they had to surrender. They lost 1,485 men and also 80% casualties. Next. How many of you have had Robert Redford portray you in battle? This is him in the movie. This is him in the movie, a really accurate portrayal. All the way across the river, the 1,200 feet, he's saying out loud, Hail Mary, full of grace, over and over again. This is the bridge at Nijmegen. As you can see, our tanks. This is the bridge at Nijmegen. As you can see, our tanks and equipment are flying across. I'm going to ask you to come back to this. Next. 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 Stop. This is in April 16th, 1945. Roughly 6 months after 9/11. The Germans were surrounded in the Ruhr pocket. The Ruhr pocket is a heavy industrialized and coal mining area. 300,000 Germans and Group Army B, under the command of Walter Morrow, were surrounded by the Americans, and they knew there was only a matter of time what the result would be. Matthew Ridgway, the general in charge of the 18th Airborne Corps, decides to get 6 German industrialists together and have them deliver a surrender letter to Field Marshal Morrow. They get close to his headquarters, but they encounter the SS, and the SS shoots them all. This is the blood-splattered surrender term letter. The words in here are virtually identical to the ones, the unconditional surrender terms, that Grant gave Lee at Appomattox. After that, General Ridgway has a great idea. He says, I'm going to send in 3 Americans by jeep with the white flag. My father, a driver, and Frank Duranstetter, who was fluent in German. So they start heading off toward the headquarters, and the first outpost they're stopped at, there's a German colonel who happens to be there, and the SS. SS just wanted to shoot him. The German colonel prevails and says, I will accompany them to the headquarters. Twice more, they're stopped at SS outpost. Twice more, the SS just wants to shoot him, and twice more, the colonel prevails. They get to Field Marshal headquarters and present the letter to Model. Model hands the letter back to him. There's something no one knew. Walter Model had been delivered a direct order to Hitler 3 days earlier to his 300,000 men to fight to the death. The only other person who knew that was the colonel who accompanied my father, Colonel Sadler. Colonel Sadler says, we can make it easier to get back to the American lines. We'll take Field Marshal's 1936 horse. There were only 50 horses ever made after the German High Command. It was a cabriolet. So off they go, and they get near the American lines. The colonel, Sadler, stops the vehicle and steps out of the car. My father thinking, uh-oh, this is it. The colonel says, I'm handing you my P-38 pistol and holster and my sword. If you accept my surrender and the driver's surrender, he's my son. So that was a pretty easy decision to make. So they make it back across the American lines. I still have that sword. You'll see it. General Motor, to his credit, I believe, the next day went in the woods behind his headquarters and with an aide next to him, shot himself. 2 days later, and I believe to save his soldiers, he never told anyone about the order from Hitler other than Colonel Sadler. 2 days later, the largest surrender in World War II took place. Over 300,000 Germans surrendered en masse without virtually any shots being fired, saving countless American lives and German lives. This is Field Marshal, this is Colonel Sadler's sword. You can clearly see the slot sticker right here. I still have this in my office. This is part of the German surrender column, flanked by tanks. Next. I happened to be in Springfield, Missouri at the wonderful car collection, classic car museum in Springfield. And I'm wandering through and I happen to see this plaque. It refers to, it states in here, appropriated by American forces. It was bought by a German, not a German, it was bought by a gentleman who lived in South Dakota who put the car into his garage untouched for 55 years. I left out part of the story. When they got to the American side, my father tried to take Model's car across to the western side of the Rhine, but the car would get hung up on a sharp angle approach. The quartermaster told him to get it out of there. So it goes to Marcel Rosen, who's head of the underground and resistance for the Belgians, and says, Marcel, get me a bottle of brandy. Marcel takes off, brings back a bottle of brandy, and my father gives him the key to the horse. Marcel, the war's over in 30 days or less. Marcel heads back to Brussels, and in part because of the car, he becomes the head of the largest shipping company in Belgium in Antwerp, and he becomes president and CEO of Sabena Airlines. The car ends up in South Dakota, and it's at the museum there. Next slide, please. That is the car, virtually untouched since World War II. Next. Getting back to the Congressional Gold Medal, I don't want to belabor it, but it is significant historically. The Congressional Gold Medal is the nation's oldest, highest, and rarest award for service. There have only been 187 ever awarded. The first person to be awarded the medal was George Washington in 1776 for kicking the British out of Boston. There have only been 40 military units in our 250-year history that have ever been awarded the Congressional Gold Medal. It is the first since World War II. It was first known in the Vietnam War. And I'm hoping that this opens the door in Congress for other units that are as deserving or more deserving than we are. Here I am lobbying with these fellows that are all Dustoff pilots. It took 6 years and 2/3 in Congress and 2/3 in the Senate to pass the bill September 25th, a year ago. Go on. Some of the presentations I've received, we will all go to Washington once they finally decide on the design of the medal and the minted the medal, and will be presented under the dome of the Capitol in the Great Rotunda in front of Congress. This is Senator Jerry Moran, and I'm presenting him one of our medals with his name engraved on it. He's been a terrific asset. He was one of the sponsors of the bill. This is in Governor Laura Kelly's office in Topeka. She's just signed a proclamation declaring April 15th Dustoff Day in the state of Kansas. I gave her an engraved medal. She wore that medal all day long. Lighter medal. This is shrapnel. Shrapnel was Randy's dog. Shrapnel flew on many missions with us. Randy went through the process, following all the correct protocol to submit shrapnel for the air medal. Shrapnel, in fact, was actually awarded the air medal as private first class 80 shrapnel. This is just me. This is just me at the traveling wall here, Casey. This first is a video of when Jim Dixon passed away in 2020. His wife Christine and daughter Sue asked if I would do something for his memorial to play. Learning of Jim's passing, Sue called to tell me that in his last words, we believe we were flying together, an honor I did not deserve. Jim was much closer to Randy Milliken, Jim Hetty, Tom Landis, and Jim Beeson. Dusk, the 6th of September, 1969. Spoon, our medic, unplugs and scrambles to carry an urgent U.S. to the aircraft. Green and VA 51 caliber tracers, like Roman candles, arc toward us in a deceptively and deadly slow motion. The covering Cobra gunship's pilot gets shot. We are now without air support. Then Spoon gets hit, but makes it onto the aircraft. The lone casualty is killed. Spoon will be awarded the Silver Star. As we depart, Jim and I are both on the controls should one of us get hit. Jim is monitoring the now erratic gauges. We fly low in case the transmission seizes to give us a chance to auto-rotate. We make it to the 12th back. Many of our Dustoff unit have arrived at the helipad. The transmission suddenly seizes and the rotor blades come to a grinding halt. Sergeant Knoyer, our terrific maintenance NCO, points with genuine glee at a clearly visible 51 caliber bullet hole dead center in the transmission. Jim and I were the aircraft maintenance officers under Sergeant's watchful eye. The aircraft is a total loss. Because Dustoff has priority, we have a new aircraft the next day. There is no one I would have rather had next to me that day than Jim Dixon. Stop. Not to belabor it, but that of all of the business accomplishments that Jim had done throughout his life, and all the things he could have been thinking about as he was having his last conscious thoughts. This is the mission where he was breathing his last conscious thoughts. This next video is on our Heartland Honor Flight. Jim Beeson, one of the pilots we flew in, who stayed in the Army and became a doctor, was dying. We all know he was dying. But he insisted on going on the honor flight. Sort of like the last hurrah for him. We're at the wall. I was appointed as guardian to push his wheelchair. And these are the comments that he made. He's being interviewed by Morgan Mobley of Channel 9.
One again, in a heartbeat.
We don't talk too much about our stories unless we're around other guys like this who really understand. The rest of the time, you're wasting your breath.
What does that do for you when you're able to talk about your story? What does that do for you when you're able to talk about your story?
It's amazing. I mean, it's really kind of like an infamous story. You know, there are not a lot of us who are in the Army story anybody. So it's just kind of the best way to go out. Cross over the other side, these guys already have. Lead through again.
As Jim said, we'd do it again. Thank you very much. Should I say any questions?
Thank you, Chris. That was really well done. We have a couple of little things for you before you disappear. Highly coveted, much desired certificate. Congratulate you. Thanks for that. And we don't have a photographer, but we do have it on camera. And we also have one of our coins.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was Long Island, I see that. I've got a little thing I'd like to take care of. We have someone who deserves special recognition real quick. I know it's late, but if I could get John and Vern to help me. Let's go this way. I don't think it's appropriate to do. I think it's very appropriate to past presidents to do this. That is to recognize our most recent past president by giving him his past president picture. Oh, lovely.
There you go.
All right.
Didn't come with instructions.
I know
You worked hard for this.
There you go. So to our past president and my acquaintance since 1987. 1987. Battalion commander, and I was his adjutant.
Yes.
Long time ago. And we were talking earlier tonight about a trip that we made to Chicago to the Armed Forces Day Parade, I think also in 1987. With the 1st Infantry Division, the McCormick Foundation, and marched in the parade there, and then went off to a Cubs game and then over to the McCormick Foundation where it allows you to eat and even more to drink.
You get more to drink. That's right. All thanks to the wonderful people of Chicago. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys just sit down and please, just go sit down. I just want to remind you all there's a couple of things coming up. And this is one we've been working on, the Heartland Salute in Topeka. We will have SAR members there at the Heartland Salute. I did not realize that this thing existed until I got drafted to basically write a couple of commercials up for them and put them on TV there in Topeka. But the Heartland Salute takes place at the Kansas National Guard Museum. They have reenactors from Civil War. They'll have us as SAR, World War II. They have, in the morning at 10 o'clock, they're going to have a parade. At the beginning of the parade, they're going to have World War II fighters do a flyover. And then just a little bit later, they'll have reenactment of a World War II battle with pyrotechnics and cannon firing. They'll have a Civil War battle later after that with pyrotechnics and cannon firing. They're going to have bands, live bands. They'll have food. It's actually pretty dang impressive, you know, put on by just a whole bunch of veterans and some of the veterans organizations. So I would commend anyone, if you're going to be around on June 6th, go to the Kansas National Guard Museum. It's there at the Topeka Airport, and enjoy this thing because it sounds to me like it's going to be a lot of fun. And they have stuff for kids there too, all kinds of things for kids. I will tell you there's one very depressing thing about this event is that if you go through the museum like I did, you'll see every piece of equipment you wore in that museum, which is very depressing. But I recommend you think about going. Does anybody else have any other upcoming events they'd like to talk about? Like maybe the picnic? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. Based on a show of hands at our last meeting, I went ahead and scheduled a baseball game with the Monarchs playing, I forget who, but the date is July the 18th. First pitch is at 6:35 p.m. We've got 20 tickets. And between now and the picnic, I'll be looking to get a hard count so that we can pay for however many want to go. Right now it's 20. I can get more, and cut off for the 20 that we have. I need to be committed by 1 July. And if we don't have 20, then they'll let me turn some back in, and we'll only pay for what we've got. Cost will be $27.83 per seat. They are good. They are good lower infield seats on the third baseline, and 2 times I've done it with this august organization. It was just a lot of fun. So be looking for something in your email. Thank you.
June 20th, picnic, Wellman Park. It's free. Free food. We encourage you to bring something, and that could be a bag of chips, it could be a neat dessert that you have, your favorite baked beans. You will have there for you free hamburgers, hot dogs, and I know they'll be very well cooked and prepared and be extremely tasty because I'm cooking them and preparing them. So I know you're going to like them. I'm going to put them on my smoker and I'm going to smoke them all. So I have a nice flavor to them. Free.
What is the time of day on that?
I have no idea. It's usually like 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock. I just get there a couple hours early. Do we know what time it is? It'll be 3 o'clock. 1,500 hours. 3 o'clock for the civilians, 1,500 for those who are in the military or were in ROTC. July 4th, Benedictine College for those who want to go up there and participate. Well, he's up there. What am I even telling you guys? July 10th through 15th, National Society, Sons of the American Revolution Congress in Greensboro, North Carolina. July 18th, Monarchs game that you just heard about. And Board of Governors meeting August 1st. August 27th, speaker to be determined. If we don't have a speaker, I have a hip pocket presentation that I will give. It's a fascinating story about a woman who has been denied recognition of her patriotism because her husband was a Tory colonel and worked and fought with the British while she was a patriot. And because of that, she's been denied recognition by both the DAR and SAR. But interestingly enough, a woman who is a PhD at George Washington University found some letters that she wrote to the Virginia state legislature. The first one being very polite, the very last one being very impolite, about why aren't you following your own laws? And trying to force them to recognize that she was a patriot. And she did some amazing patriotic things. And I think that once that evidence is presented both to the SAR and the DAR, they'll be very happy to recognize her and her children as patriots, as they all were. And lastly, we have Vern is going to conduct a quick memorial service as part of our Memorial Day recognition.
Since its beginning in 1889, one of the stated goals of the National Society, Sons of the American Revolution, has been to locate the graves of the patriots who served our country during the American Revolution. Once found, the graves have been honored with a bronze marker that had the seal of the Sons of the American Revolution. Our compatriots who live east of the Kansas border often note their participation in the Patriot grave marking ceremony. Recently, the National Society has authorized the marking of the graves of compatriots, that is, those who have patriot ancestors and have become members of the Sons of the American Revolution. A bronze compatriot grave marker has been developed, and so for the first time, the Henry Leavenworth chapter of Sons of the American Revolution has had the privilege of initiating a patriot grave marking and memorial service. We have one coming up in the month of June. June 7th, I believe, we will have a compatriot grave marking service. In the Old Testament book of Exodus, in chapter 12, verses 14, we read, "So this day shall be to you a memorial." Memorials are fitting because we must remember the sacrifices of those who come before us. In honor of the veterans of the Civil War, Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, Jr., who had been wounded 3 times during the war, said in a Memorial Day address in 1884, "It is now the moment when, by common consent, we pause to become conscious of our national life and to rejoice in it, to recall what our country has done for each of us, and to ask ourselves what we can do for our country in return." Thus, Justice Holmes enumerated the purposes for Memorial Day, which, of course, we celebrated Monday. And so this is our chapter meeting closest to Memorial Day, and that's why we have taken the time to do this memorial service. Today we have chosen to honor 4 compatriots of the Henry Leavenworth chapter, Sons of the American Revolution, who have since gone to their final reward. First one is Jack Ellsworth Walker, born 18 February 1834, died 31 December 2025, who honored his patriot John Fallon. Or is it Fallon?
Fallon.
Did I say it right? John, if you wouldn't mind coming up, we have prepared a memorial certificate for all 4 of our deceased members, and 2 of them are here and will receive the memorial certificate for their compatriot. The first one is the Walker family. If you will identify yourself so that John can hand you the memorial certificate. Please accept our condolences for your loss. May God bless the memory of Jack Walker, and may that find a prominent place in your home to remember his contribution to the National Society Sons of the American Revolution. Thank you.
Can we all have you get closer? Thank you.
Cameron Eldridge Davis was born 20 January 1935, died 22 April 2026, and he honored his compatriot Asa Colton. We have a member of the Davis family here, Mark Davis, who was his dad who passed away. And God grant you his condolences, and may that find a prominent place for your family's history. We do miss and appreciate your father. Thank you, Mark. The other two who do not have a family here with us tonight is Stephen Franklin Wright, who was born 20 July 1973, died 5 April 2026, and he honored his patriot Richard Wright Sr. And Larry Richard Garrison, born 10 January 1951, and died 16 June 2025, who honored his patriot Jacob Fissler and their patriot ancestors, and so forth. We extend our condolences to those families. I did get in contact with Mrs. Garrison, Larry's widow, and she's planning to be here at our chapter meeting in August, and we are looking forward to that. So, would you join me, please, in a memorial prayer? Our Lord and our God, we ask your blessings upon each of us. We thank you for this occasion as we honor the memories of Jack Walker, Cameron Davis, Stephen Wright, and Larry Garrison. We esteem their patriotism and courage, their faith and loyalty, and their willingness to sacrifice and to make our world a better place. We thank you, too, for America and all patriots who have given us the liberties and privileges we enjoy. May we be willing to serve you and even to sacrifice for our nation, as did compatriots Walker, Davis, Wright, and Garrison. May the ideals that we remember from the past sustain us today and safeguard us tomorrow. Amen. And now, since I appear to have been given the responsibility of closing this meeting, yes, sir.
Chris Crowley has something to say.
I left something out from my presentation. My father became the first general in his class. There was no one else who ever graduated last in their class and became first general, except George Armstrong Custer, who was promoted to a general in the Civil War and later busted back to a brevet colonel. Thank you.
It's nice to have a meeting where we mention George Armstrong Custer, don't you think? He is a prominent figure here in Kansas. So, would you stand with me as we close our meeting? Almighty God, we go from here, may we remember the devotion and dedication of all who have made our nation great. May we be inspired and encouraged by the patriots and compatriots we have honored today, and may we perpetuate their virtues in our lives. May the peace of God, which surpasses all, guard our hearts and minds in the ties of friendship and unity of love. Amen. Let's recite the recessional. Until we meet again, let us remember to our forefathers who gave us the Constitution, Supreme Court, and a Supreme Court, and a nation of free men. I should have written that down here. Thank you. We are dismissed. Thank you for being here tonight.